The GTN 750 can display lots of different information to you, and it's possible to customize its data fields to your tastes. The problem that you might run into, especially with a panel like this where we have a GTN and the G5s and Garmin Pilot running on our iPad, is that you might get overloaded and overwhelmed with non-essential information. So it's really important that when you customize this, you put things in the right places. Now, your panel might be completely different than this, so I want to start by talking about what I think are the 7 essential data fields that you have to have displayed to you, regardless of what panel you fly behind. The first 2 essential data fields work in tandem. They're desired track and track. Desired track is simply the course of the magenta line on the GPS. Track is the airplane's current course over the ground, and as such, it takes all the guesswork out of wind correction. If the needle is centered, matching your track to your desired track will keep it centered. If you're off course, it's easy to set, say, a 10-degree wind-corrected intercept angle. You simply fly whatever heading gives you a 10-degree difference between track and desired track. Rounding out a trio of useful tracking information is cross-track error. This is your lateral distance from the course line. While the CDI does provide lateral deviation information, its sensitivity varies according to the phase of flight. Having a numeric cross-track error paints a clearer picture of exactly how far off course you are. That's particularly useful to instrument pilots in training who haven't developed a sense for what a certain needle deflection actually means. But even for experienced instrument pilots, cross-track error adds a level of precision. Estimated time en route, or ETE, tells you how long until the next waypoint. IFR is all about knowing how long you have until the next thing happens, and since things tend to happen at waypoints, ETE offers critical information at a glance about how you need to manage your time. Distance to the next waypoint is useful in the same way as ETE, plus it's good for making position reports, and it provides more spatial awareness than ETE alone. You'll want ground speed for its performance and wind implications, and of course for taking pictures of your speed records. If you have VNAV functionality, vertical speed required is essential information. VSR, as it's called, tells you the descent rate required to meet the desired profile and comply with any altitude constraints in the flight plan. So the specific spots that you might put these data fields depends a lot on the panel that you have, the type of flying you do, the places that you fly. In this panel, I have 4 fields that I can customize on the GTN 750. I also have a lot of data, though, on the G5s, which are right at the center of my scan, and I don't necessarily want to duplicate that on the GTN. So on the PFD, for example, I have ground speed. On the HSI, I have wind information. I have track in the form of the magenta diamond on the HSI. I have distance to the next waypoint, and I have desired track. So I don't necessarily need those on the GTN. Right now, the GTN is set up with the default fields. I do want to change some of those. To do that, you go to Menu and choose Change User Fields. And then all I have to do is tap on the field I want to change, and it'll give me a list of things I can change it to. So on the top left, I'm going to change desired track to estimated time en route. I already have desired track on the G5 HSI, so I don't really need it there. Estimated time en route tells me how long until the next thing. That's critically important for IFR, so I've got it right in the top left corner of the GTN. On the top right, I'm going to leave track there. It's true that I do have that magenta diamond on the HSI that shows track, but I like the precision of the numeric track display, so I'm going to leave that there. Bottom right, distance is already on the G5. I don't need that there. I'm going to change that to cross-track error. These are alphabetically, so it's all the way at the bottom, XTK. Cross-track error lets me fly with a little more precision, and I like that bottom right location because it's right next to the CDI. Then on the bottom left, I'm going to get rid of ground speed because that's already on the PFD, and I'm going to change that to vertical speed required. That'll help me with VNAV descents. I picked the bottom left corner for VSR on purpose because that's actually a field that goes away eventually. What happens is that when you get close to the airport, the GTN replaces that field with a visual approach selector that lets you load and activate a visual approach. Vertical speed required happens to go away itself close to the airport. Depending on the specific configuration of your panel, vertical speed required will either go away at the final approach fix or when the final approach fix becomes active. And so that's right around the time that the GTN pops up the visual approach selector option. So you have vertical speed required as long as it's useful, and then right about around the time when it stops being useful, it gets replaced by something useful, which is the visual approach selector. The default for when that happens is at 10 miles, and that's something you actually can change, and I would recommend changing. 5 miles seems a little bit better match for when VSR goes away typically. It's right around where the final approach fix usually is. 10 miles is a little bit too early. VSR is usually still useful at that point. So I'm going to go into Menu, Map Setup, Visual Approach Selector, and I have it set to 5 miles. By default, that's 10 miles. All right, that leaves us with 8 data fields that we can customize on Garmin Pilot right across the top here. These I reserve for less critical items for 2 reasons. One is that the iPad isn't as centered in my scan. I actually need to make an effort to look at the iPad. And second, it's not a certified IFR navigation device, and so its GPS data is not necessarily as accurate as the ones in the panel. So what I like is distance to the destination on the top left. That makes CTAF position reports easy when the GPS might not have the airport as the active waypoint. And I have ETE, estimated time en route, to the destination as a quick reference for how long it's going to take to get there. GPS altitude AGL is kind of nice as another cross-check for terrain awareness. And then I like nearest altimeter and nearest wind. And ground speed I have as the last field because I don't always fly planes that have ground speed on a PFD like we have here. If I didn't have the G5s in the panel, that would change which fields I would choose to set on the GTN. So I'd still have estimated time en route there. I would still have track, but I would definitely want desired track somewhere, and I would replace cross-track error with desired track. On the bottom left where vertical speed required is, I would put distance, but then I would switch the vertical speed required for descents when I'm using it. After all, it's pretty easy to go in and swap data fields in and out, so I can choose whatever's more useful in the moment there between vertical speed and distance, or whatever else fits the situation well. If you don't have the built-in audio panel or transponder, your GTN 750 looks like this, with 6 extra data fields at the top. And now, especially combined with the G5s and the iPad here, I have way more information than I need that I can put in front of me. Now, if I want to customize these data fields, you don't do it the same way as the other ones. You actually go to System and then User Fields. If you've got more data fields than you really need, you can also configure these to display functions or shortcuts. So for example, we might replace bearing here with a timer. We might replace ETE because we already have it with a link to the procedures page. Another aspect of screen real estate management is where you're going to put different types of comm frequencies. My preference when I'm flying a single GTN setup like this is to put the airport frequencies in COM 1 and the en route frequencies in COM 2. And that's mostly because of how easy it is to load airport frequencies out of the database into the COM 1. So for example, if I want to get set up with destination comm frequencies, the easiest way to do that is to go into the flight plan, scroll down to my destination airport, tap on that, then waypoint info, frequencies. I can put the ATIS in there, swap that to active, and then I can put the tower frequency in the standby. Another way to do that could be quicker depending on the circumstances. Tap the frequency as if you're going to tune it as normal, and then go to Find, Flight Plan, and there's your destination airport, multiple frequencies, and I could load the tower frequency there. Downside is it goes away after you choose one frequency, so I can't load multiples like I did with the ATIS and the tower without going back in and doing it. But of course, en route here, we really should be monitoring guard. There is a shortcut on the GTN to get to 121.5, which is holding down the comm volume button. But if you have the integrated transponder in the GTN, don't do that because it also sets 7700 as a transponder code. So reserve that shortcut for emergencies. So we'll enter that manually. And on the GTN, you don't have to enter the leading one on comm frequencies. So quick entry here for 121.5 is just to type 215 and transfer it. And then we can monitor on that frequency. My favorite COM frequency, I'm sure everybody has a favorite COM frequency, is 120.0, because to enter that on the GTN, all you have to do is press 2. The ideal data configuration depends on panel, pilot, and location. Make sure the essential data fields occupy prime real estate. Load airport frequencies quickly from the GTN's database.